Project. Expanding your mind.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rex Elite Project.
Ladies and gentlemen.
And we've also got the legend, Diamond from Oppenheimer Ranch. Actually, Diamond is a legend of legends. We're going to talk about the grand solar minimum and a diamond. Holy cow. Had an echo there. So, yeah, do you like that? So, folks, thank you for your patience. Thank you for joining us. What we're going to talk about is some very unsettling information about the weakening magnetosphere, the grand solar minimum that we're in right now, and also with a research essay, an interview that came out that we're going to discuss via Zharkova. Is that correct? And Zarkovsky. Before we do that real quick, and Diamond, you're still on mute, I would like to let you folks know real quick, This podcast is brought to you in part by minds.com. This is an excellent social network platform where you can actually send information, you can blog, you can leave your information like you do on my comment section, but you can get rewarded there with crypto coins. It's really cool. So check it out, minds.com. It's the wave of the future. Now let's talk about the grand solar minimum. Are we going to be able to go outside without having to wear some like protective clothing and a space helmet? Is it going to be that bad in 10 years? It might be, but I do that just for fun anyway, to freak people out. So I like your hat, Diamond.
Yeah, this dude I know is my neighbor. He brought this over.
Things are worth a lot of money, and they also block 5G, so that's cool.
Well, they actually are so shiny that I don't need additional lighting in here because they're just taking the ambient light and they're illuminating the entire barn.
It really is, and you're not even exaggerating about that. You're like shining right now. It's awesome. It's reflecting. You could actually grow crops with your cap. So
yeah, it's amazing. But I'm about to bring up some of the graphs, Rex, and but let me just do a quick synopsis of the data that has been exposed in 2014, the data that has been re-revealed, in fact, rehashed in 2018 right now, and what they want to do in the future. Now, this group they're experts on magnetic dynamos, magnetic fields. They're not plasma physicists. They're not climatologists. They didn't particularly want to study the sun, but the sun happens to be one of the most amazingly studied magnetic systems in the universe. So they had this data set of the magnetic field of our sun going back many decades that satellites and other equipment have been recording in great detail. So if you're a statistical analyst and you want to make a prediction or make an analysis of something amazing, what you're looking for is a complete and excellent data set of information. And they found it in our scientific studies of the sun over the last several decades. So what Zharkova and her team did in 2014 is to take some of that data and put it into a supercomputer. Because Rex, I don't know if you know that statistical analysis in the earth sciences, physics, and chemistry had its heyday in the early 90s when I started at university, and it became a whole field. In fact, in the 90s, we did statistical analysis on the global warming issue, and we determined that without another 1,000 to 3,000 years of data, it would be impossible to prove any human effect on climate. So that's just some background on statistical analysis. Now let's talk about what Zharkova did. Back in 2014, Zharkova, Zharkov, and Shepard took that amazing data set of magnetic field data from the sun and they put it into a supercomputer. And they put the parameters in, and the supercomputer calculated all the data that had ever existed and the fact that it was a magnetic field dynamo, and it predicted out the future. It predicted out the future as far as the data set they gave it was. And the future showed that the magnetic field of the sun was about to go out of phase. And no one really knew what that meant at the time, except that out of phase at the same time as solar minimum could be a very bad thing. Now, the unfortunate thing is in 2014, that is the peak of like global warming hysteria. So if you put out this statistical analysis paper on the sun dynamo and it shows that the sun's going to shut down and it's going to get cold, absolutely no one is going to listen to it. Now, here's the unique sequence of events leading up to today. That the planet has been cooling since the El Nino in 2016. The peak temperature on Earth recorded in the last several hundred years was February of 2016. And since that date, as many of us in the grand solar minimum community was waiting for, was for the flexure point. I was waiting for it since 2012. And I figured it would happen between 2014 and 2018. And it changed it. Go ahead. You want to talk? What do you want to say?
After you're going to say that, I just would like you to, for those that aren't familiar with these solar cycles, like you described to me earlier, the 11-year cycle, the 22-year cycle, and the actual sun and its movement in conjunction with those cycles.
Okay, yeah. So that's a lot of stuff we'll lay on at the end, but let's right now talk about what Zharkova did.
Great.
Excuse me. So what Zharkova did is she took all the detailed analysis we've had of the sun's magnetic field for decades and put it into a supercomputer. They crunched the numbers and they made a prediction. Unfortunately, their prediction came out during global warming hysteria. No one gave an F. They could care less about that paper. One woman from Ukraine out of this university of nowhere has this paper. Who cares? The problem is that now the talk that she just did the other day at the Global Warming Policy Forum exposed the fact that she is one of the only people on the planet that has made the most correct prediction about Earth's climate than anyone else ever in recorded history. In fact, her prediction is so correct, it's almost 90. Her mathematical analysis was 94% correct, according to the statistics. But upon checking from 2014 to today, what actually happened after they made this statistical analysis, they were 97% accurate. It's insane. So I'm going to pull out some of these graphs, and then we can actually look at what that is.
You know, I'm glad.
So bear with me.
Yeah, no problem. I'll go ahead and just talk for a minute while you're pulling that up, because I remember that I was looking at that chart earlier today. I remember you discussing Zharkova. So I started doing the research, looking up the data. Then I was pulling up the charts, and I'm like, what does the red line and the blue line mean? And then I'm going back and I'm looking at all the abbreviations. And then I'm like, Diamond, you got to help me out here a little bit. And you're like, yeah, well, this is what it means. And you were talking about the different oscillating frequencies and stuff. So now I get it. And it's very interesting. And by 2030, if her projections are right, and if she's 97% accurate, which is what they're saying her data in the past has been, at first, like you said, it was 94, now it's 97% accurate. That's, I don't know. I mean, this is like the unknown where man has never been before, at least in recorded history. So this is it. This is it, folks. We just look at it.
Well, what we're looking at here, Rex, is the international sunspot numbers. So that we're not going to confuse anybody, we're going to start at the beginning. It's a monthly mean and a 13-month smooth number. And what that means is the red line is the smooth number, and the blue line is the actual data when they take a data point. And what you are going to see here, even for the layman, you can clearly see the cycle in 1970 was weak. Rex, can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
And then you can see that the cycle we're living, cycle 24 here on the right, is a little weaker than 1970. And so what happened in 1970, and people remember this that are as old as I, 72, 3, 4, I was born right here during the cosmic ray increase during this minimum, which makes me, I'm one of those special babies. I'm left-handed and I was gifted. But what that means is if you're having children now, they should be awesome. But more importantly, that the winters that we're going into are worse than the winters of 73, 4, 5, 6. These are some of the worst winters in anyone's lives. The Buffalo blizzard, et cetera, they all happened on this tiny cycles downswing. And guess where we are? We're on our tiny cycles downswing right here. And it does not look good based on just solar cycles, okay? So these are solar cycles, big deal. Now, let's go over to the Zharkova work. These don't have anything to do with solar cycles, meaning sunspot cycles. The sunspot cycles are delineated down below here, 21, 22, 23. 24. So if this was sunspots, there would be no sunspots on these lines. These are the minimums between the cycles. But what you're looking at here is the positive and the negative magnetic field of the sun. And this is what Zharkova's work uncovered. It uncovered that, and if you see here at the beginning, we're looking at the line here at cycle 23 going into 24. That's when her predictions began. And if you can see here, this circled area in the A zone.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So what you can see is a dashed line between these 2 points. And the dashed line is her statistical analysis, her model data. And the red and the blue lines are the actual measured NASA data of the actual field. So the statistical analysis that her model did is almost exactly what occurred, which is insane. It's insane because of this point that I'm about to point out to you. Zharkova is not a plasma physicist, okay? She's not. She just does math and magnetic fields. And so prior to this black line where I'm drawing you, 150 of the top plasma physicists and solar physicists the world over made predictions about cycle 24. 150 of the top PhDs in the world, and they were all wrong. 148 out of 150 predicted cycle 24 to be bigger than 23. And they were wrong. There were only 2 people in the world that were right. 2. And Valentina Zharkova was one of them. The other person just said it was going to be weaker. She gave us this graph and it was exact. Now, here's where it gets interesting, Rex. Computers over the last 4 years that are called supercomputers have increased in size exponentially. Can you imagine the size of the supercomputer that Valentina Zharkova can get our hands on these days?
Well, I mean, they've got computers right now that can calculate quadrillions of floating points per second. So, and every single year it gets faster. And the computation with the quantum computers, if they can actually fine tune those quantum computers, this is going to be it's going to be right there. It's going to be easily accessible with a valuable quantum computer, in my opinion. If the data is correct about quantum computing, they're going to figure it out.
Yeah. So if you listen to what she says in her newest update with the Global Warming Policy Forum, this is what Valentina Zharkova says. She says that they, in fact, recalibrated. So they saw how excellent this data was, and it matched up perfectly. And they realized computers had gotten better, so they added 2 more data points. They included more data sets because when they started doing the calculation, they could not add more data because the computers actually fried up. So they added 2 more data sets recently. They added blue light and ultraviolet. We both know those are shifting during solar minimum, so they're critical pieces of data. And what they recalculated was an even finer tuned prediction for the next 10 or 20 years. They were actually able to go from just a 200-year data set of information to an 800-year data set, 800 years before present and 100 years into the future with their statistical analysis with these new supercomputers. And the data and what they found out was bleak. And what I mean by that is what you're looking at here in the green or the chartreuse is the actual measured data as we fall off of cycle 24, which is matching the smooth red curve. The smooth red curve is the statistical analysis of our future. Now, there has never been a cycle as weak as the one shown here from 2020 to 2028. Never before, ever, for 8,000 years has there been a solar cycle that would be 80% weaker than cycle 24 that we're in. Do you want to jive before I keep going? Do you want to jump in?
And this isn't going to be anything except for there are those few people out there that when people have body language, for example, you're a very animated person like I am. And a lot of times I'll do the okay sign and people think that I'm actually busting the satanic 666 sign. So I just wanted to let the person in the chat room know that Diamond is not, the other person goes, I usually like your shows, but I'm not digging the hand signals. So folks, Diamond is not paying homage to the Dark Lord. He is not busting out the six symbol. I mean, he's just talking. He's just an animated dude. So I just want to make that very clear. And I divagate, but I just wanted to just clear that out of the, clear that out real quick. Get that gas out of here. Back to you.
Yeah, hail Satan. All right, so let's get on with some scientific facts and screw all the haters. Basically, what you're looking at here is this little jump here is, according to Zharkova, we're going to experience 80% less sunspots than in cycle 24. 80% less sunspots is unprecedented. It brings us back into the Maunder minimum. And the Maunder minimum, there was very little scientific endeavor into watching the sun. So the data that we have is so sparse that a lot of people say there were no spots for 100 years. That's probably wrong. But what she's predicting is an insane change. We're talking going back at least to 1450 from now until 8 years from now, Rex. And then from 8 years from now and 4 years after that, we're talking from 8 to 14 years from now or 12 years from now. It is going to be a time that has never been known. Now, the reason is because sunspots may be not even present. There may be no solar activity. And that is the point when many are predicting 2020, 32, 35 for the sun to shut down, which is like, pew, it shuts down. Could you imagine that? It's like it's hitting a switch. And then when that shutdown occurs, an EMP comes off. Pew, and destroys everything on Earth that's electrical. So it's literally like the sun goes off, Stone Age begins, everything gets fried.
Now, here's one thing that I wanted to
and that's
talk
right
to.
here.
Okay.
Right here. They have it at 2033.
What a great year, 2033. So I am just thinking that not only could we see a huge solar flare and with a weakening magnetosphere, and as Lee brought up yesterday, great interview with Lee Wilbarger, the electric solar blue yacht project that he's working on, that's really exciting. If you haven't heard about that yet, folks, you definitely need to check that out. What a great way to be off the grid and mobile at the same time, unless all the oceans freeze, and then you'd have to have an icebreaker. Halo! But anyway, I don't even know where I was going with this, and then I just started to divagate, but help me out, Diamond. You don't. Okay, Diamond just left. So I was saying something important, and then I started getting 5G'd outside because we've got the 5G squad out there. They've got the HARP machine, but I do have the liner inside of the cap here, which is good news, just not the full body suit. Where was I going with this? Yes, the Adam and Eve research essay by Chan Thomas that describes how there are these events that happen every 6,000 years. These resets almost, extreme cataclysmic events. We're talking winds that can go up to 1,000 miles an hour, sonic winds, like sonic boom, Guile style. We're talking earthquakes, volcanoes, the works. But when the magnetosphere weakens, that's what I was talking about, a weakening magnetosphere. He was talking about, Lee said, hey, it doesn't collapse, it just gets weaker. That makes sense. Well, when it gets extremely weak because it's 94 million miles away from the sun, and then there are these neutrinos coming in or whatever, could that cause a explosion inside of the mantle of the Earth, which is described in this Adam and Eve story, which is declassified recently? You can actually find the sanitized version on the CIA.gov vault section of the website. Maybe you can find a physical copy. If you can, you're lucky. But anyway, so he describes every 6,000 years these events that unfold, which like wipes out the majority of humanity. And you were saying that there was like 4,600 years approximately on that timeline. Please explain this. Unmute. Sonic boom.
Yeah. Well, I could explain it, but I need to bring up the cosmic catastrophe, the Great Year. Remember the Iron Cross Great Year chart? That chart shows the precession of the equinoxes. And that periodicity, that 5,000 year periodicity, comes into one of those wedges. So each of those wedges is one of the clicks in the Great Year. But if you actually break the Great Year up, half of a great year is going to be, so if this is a 26,000 year cycle, half of a great year is 13,000. Half of that is 6,500. So 6,500 are the X's on the cosmic catastrophe great year. So there are major flexure points that happen there that geologically right now they're very unexplainable what's happening there, but it could be, what were you suggesting?
I think with a weakened magnetosphere, I think that these neutrinos that have been studied for a long time. I know that Park City, Utah has more underground tunnels in Park City based on the old mining and stuff that they did out there than New York City. And most people don't know about that because Park City is a small skiing town. But there was a very deep mine where I think in the 60s or 70s, they started studying and testing neutrinos, and that's how deep it was in the earth. And I remember the film 2012, and the cataclysms of 2012 started with these neutrino effects and heating up the inner core. So I am wondering if the Adam and Eve story that was declassified, that you can actually read now, that was classified, now declassified, in conjunction with the little hints that the media gives us, in connection with what we're talking about and the data, do you think that there could be a cause and effect of solar rays or neutrinos, either or, causing the inner core to heat up and a reset? Could that be the official reset that happens every X amount of years?
Yes, but I don't think on the periodicity of 6,000 or 5,000 years, because what we know from the geologic record, Rex, is that magnetic excursions and magnetic reversals happen on a grander scale. The smallest scale that we can see magnetic reversals happening or excursions is 11,005 or 12,000, 13,000 year scale, which corresponds to half a great year. So magnetic excursions happening every 12 or 13,000 years, that would lead to cosmogenic forces, the waning magnetosphere, allowing for influx of cosmic radiation or asteroids or any types of things. UVA, UVB, UVC, it's cosmic radiation, broad-based across the spectrum. The cosmic radiation that comes in is spectral, as we say. So let me share this. And can you share that?
Yeah, are we looking at this, the magnetosphere right now?
Yeah, the magnetosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah. Let me get rid of you.
Ladies and gentlemen.
So what you're looking at is this
right now.
The blue part here. The blue part's the shield from the planet. Okay, so if to the left here is the sun, this is the shield of our planet, because as the sun shoots a plasma stream at us, we have a shield. When the sun goes dead, this shield goes down. It starts moving towards the earth. This starts moving towards the earth, the magnetic field, and it starts collapsing. And that allows more cosmic rays to come through here and hit us. So what this is doing out here, and when it's strong, is preventing a whole cacophony of cosmic radiation, the ultraviolet, all kinds, all the way from microwave on down. Every band will be coming into the planet. So it is going to be in the future, in the near future, it's going to be very bad to go outside with your naked skin. People that go sunbathing are basically idiots. Starting now.
Let me add something to that. Do you feel that mind over matter is a very real? Diamond.
Is a very real what?
Yeah, like, do you feel that it's real when somebody says that? Okay. So what, do you think you could actually take the sun? Yeah. Do you think you could take the sun?
I can prove that it is.
So you take the energy of the sun, and there's got to be a way to like transfer the energy somehow. You know how we've had talks in the past about there's going to be, you see the future of people just like mutating, you know, and we've kind of had some crazy discussions about that. So do you think there's going to be some people that are going to be able to take the different frequencies and the radiation from the sun and actually transmute it into a positive fashion?
Yeah, absolutely. The problem is the majority of the population will react negatively. What these events cause is major medical issues with people with heart problems that are already weakened immune systems. If we have geomagnetic storm with weakened magnetic field, it's going to wreak havoc on people that have heart conditions. People that are slightly crazy might go off the cuff. The full moon effect, you know about that. So these types of increased effects cosmogenically are going to make most people go crazy. Now, the people that are ready for it, the people that are awake or woke, the people that are trying to tap into their inner consciousness, clearing their pituitary, meditating, finding the source within, those are the people that evolve. Those are the people that understand what's happening. And I believe that intention is 100% real. We can prove this, Rex, simply from the placebo effect. It has been proven for centuries. Almost 60% of people can recover from illness if they believe the fake medication they're taking is helping them. And that means Jesus was correct and the Christ head is true. It means you are God. You control the narrative. You have the power to heal yourself. And if you don't believe it, it will not work. The power to healing is believing that you are a healer. I have healed people and I don't take credit for it because all I did was put that person in a position to believe that they could make themselves well. And it was their immune system that healed them. I had nothing to do with it. I'm a convincer. That's all I am.
I read a great book on the placebo called The Holographic Universe Theory by Michael Talbot. And that, in my opinion, hit it home about how powerful the mind is. And then the biggest secret, what is it? Actually, not that. The Secret. The biggest secret is a conspiracy book by David Icke, which will just freak you out if you ever read it. I wouldn't recommend it. It'll just be like, you'll be scared of everything and everybody. You'll be like, is my mailbox a reptilian shapeshifter that's going to eat me now? You'll probably question your mailbox. I'm just saying. So no, it's called The Secret. And like, it's what you think you can create. You can create all the chemicals in your mind just by thought if you can actually get to that level of manifestation. So I guess that makes sense. But anyway, that's a whole other podcast for a whole other time. We're talking about the grand solar minimum right now and the effects that we are going to be seeing over the next 10, 15 years. And when we were looking at, when you were showing the charts earlier and the projections in connection with what has actually happened, the data they have access to, that's pretty spooky stuff. But then you can see right around 2030, I mean, it's gone. There's like nothing there. So, I mean, you say if it just shuts off, if the sun shuts off, can you imagine? That means we're going to have to gather energy from other stars. How do we do that?
Well, no, you know what? I think, I'm really not on the same page as Lee Wilbarger with this. He tends to be a little bit more of an extremist in his predictions than I am, which is fine because the only way that Lee and I get along is that we don't get along on everything. That's what scientists do. We all have different opinions, but we're all going down the same road. So we're all cool with each other. people that take offense to the fact that you believe something different, those people, they don't know how to play the game correctly. They're not scientists. So he tends to be an extremist, which is fine because there's nothing wrong with him predicting the most extreme reality because that might come true. It's my prediction that it's going to be a little different. And the reason that I believe that is because I have a different background than Lee, and I'm an earth scientist, and I know what the oceans are capable of. Our oceans are the great moderator of climate. And what they do is they don't allow climate, no matter how much havoc climate can wreak, they do not allow it to kill humanity, take over the planet, and destroy all biology. And the reason is because the oceans, no one on Earth really, there's very few people that can fathom how big they are. They're so big that there is a 90% likelihood that anything that falls from space will hit them. That's how big they are. The chance of something hitting the surface of Earth, meaning the continent, is almost zero. It almost always hits the ocean. Now, couple that with the fact that the oceans in many areas are 5 miles deep. That is 25,000 feet on average. Rex, that's...
Let me add to that. They've also proved... No, let me add to that, the oceans thing. Brooks Agnew, very great guest, very knowledgeable. He discusses the information. This was also mainstream science where they discovered another ocean underneath the Atlantic Ocean. So when you're talking about that 5 miles there, they've also got an ocean that's bigger than the Atlantic under the Atlantic. It's fascinating. Just wanted to throw out my 2 cents.
Yeah. So if you watch any of my greenhouse videos, you know what water does? It's called thermal mass. All I did was put 800 gallons of water in my greenhouse, and now the greenhouse miraculously is 20 degrees warmer than outside. So can you imagine if we take 5 mile deep ocean, which is 90% of the planet, and we store all the heat in there? Even if you were to drop the Earth's temperature 30 degrees, all you'd have to do is move near the ocean. It's going to generate heat for hundreds of years, which is why there's an ice-free corridor all the way up through Alaska and all around the Pacific Rim during ice ages. Because when the whole planet freezes from glaciers, the whole planet can't be cold. Climate is a system, so it has to be warm somewhere. When you have 1,000 degrees and 500 goes here, the other 500 goes here. You can't just make every place cold. And what you can't make cold instantly is the ocean. It takes hundreds of years to cool that ocean. It's gigantic. So all the fear mongers that think everyone's going to die and it's going to be freezing cold, we're all going to die, that is not what happens. It does happen geologically instantaneous, though, Rex, which means 100, 150 years. We could be in full glaciation in 150 years. But no one alive is going to see 1 mile glaciers in New York or any of that BS. What they may see in a decade at the peak of this in 2028 to 2032 is Hudson Bay will freeze over. It will never thaw. The entire Arctic will never have an ice-free time. And Al Gore.
Everybody loves Al Gore.
I have his book right here.
Al Gore is just such a wonderful thing. I mean, some people say
he loves
he invented the internet, dude. He invented the internet.
Oh my.
He's been warning us about, dude, everybody loves Al Gore. That'll never happen. They'll just be giving him Christmas cards and thanking him. And, he's just a lovely thing. So, folks, thank you for, Al Gore. We're going to have a happy day did you know, folks, I didn't want to talk about this, but because Diamond brought it up, I guess I'll bring it up now. There is word that there might actually be a holiday in the near future named after Al Gore. So can we turn off the screen share for a minute? I want to, they're talking about it. They're actually talking about making Al Gore a holiday because of the amazing person that he is. And also the fact that he invented the internet. So, but anyway, that's a whole other podcast. That's a whole other podcast, ladies and gentlemen. But I will say this. That I think that it's great to get different ideas and opinions and thoughts about the future. And it seems to me like at the darkest hour, somehow light finds its way in there and people can see how to get out of it. For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. No good deed goes unpunished. We will prevail as far as a species, I feel. Even if you watch the rise of the robots, humans find a way to make it through, and we're going to do it. Terminator style, you name it, I don't know, but it's going to be really exciting. And let's, oh, really? Al Gore didn't invent the internet? But he said he did on the internet, and everything's really on the internet. Come on now.
Hey, Rex, I want to clear something up real quick here. Lee Wilbarger, Ben Davidson, Adapt 2030, Diamond, you, Ice Age Farmer, we are all different humans. Now, we've all come to our own conclusions based on our own research. The reason we all have different opinions is because we are true to our nature. We're not sellouts. And here is the most important point. I've heard a lot of controversy because Ben Davidson just came out with a video yesterday on the Grand Solar Minimum. Now, he has a conference, like we're going to have LeakCon coming up here in May. This is going to be his 5th year for observing the frontier. He has a top-notch plasma physicist, Dr. Lisa Upton. She comes to his conference every year. She is controlled by the narrative. She is paid by the powers that be. But she is badass enough that she goes out on a limb to actually predict the coming solar cycle. And she tells as much of the truth as she knows. They don't predict further than 5 years, and they're very, modest in their predictions. So he's going to obviously back her up because that's his people. So he's not saying that we're not in a grand solar minimum. All that he's saying is that it's not potentially going to be as bad as people are saying this cycle. Ben Davis is in fact predicting that 2028 to 2032 is going to be bad. Next cycle, he's predicting next cycle. But Lee and I are predicting this cycle. And guess what? In 2 years, you, Rex, and everyone else in the world is going to know who's right. So there's no need for us to call each other idiots or badmouth and say, hey, he said this and I said that. Of course, everyone should have a different opinion. If we all had the same opinion, it would be 1984 and it would all be a lie. So the reason you're listening to Rax and Diamond and all these people is because we are actually making conclusions based on our research. And that's who you want to be listening to. It changes daily. It's updating daily. And you need to follow us because this is literally, it's fluid. We are being fluid. It's called permaculture principles. When the information takes us to the left, we're going to go to the left. And we're not going to continue to go forward to some false narrative. We are looking for the truth. And that's a boom.
Looking for the truth. That's what it's about. And if the truth doesn't meet your narrative that you thought it did, hey, can you handle it? Well, I think if you're listening to Leak Project, I'll bet you can. I'll bet if you're listening to Oppenheimer Ranch Project, if you're listening to Diamond, I'll bet you can. I'll bet if you're listening to Lee Wilbarger, I'll bet you can handle the truth. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening. So yeah, this is great information. And I always like when we have these, these quick talks, because I think we can bring a lot of data to the table. And, even you and I have discussions where we talk about the stratospheric aerosol injections and such. And we've had some pretty heated debates before, but you know what? I think it makes us smarter. I think that when you can have a healthy conversation with somebody that you don't agree with, you can kind of meet eye to eye on certain things and then add to the information, add to that data that you've already brought to the table, because even the smartest person in the world can learn something new every single day. And once you think you know everything, you're definitely not the smartest person in the world. And on that note, I think that you've got an awesome hat. I don't know where you got it. Is that a Leak Project MK2 cap that's limited? There's not many of those left. Oh, and you've got the 5G line.
This is actually... It's actually one of the only, I think there's only 3 of these in the universe that actually has the liners sewn in by hand. This actually is probably worth about $5,000 to $10,000. And it's one of the most unique. It's one of the first runs. It's called the prototype. Have you ever seen the prototype? I got it. I got this at 14,000 at auction in the UK.
And actually, I think they even let you do 3 easy payments. That's awesome, dude. I love that. Yeah, because a lot of these now, they take so much time to put the liners in. I've only got a couple of these left, and I've got the last shipment coming in from London. My friend that handcrafts these, the architect. But you're going to see here that this one has the liner that comes separate. So you can take it out. Yours is actually built in, and there weren't many that had the liner sewn in like that. So, yeah. $1 million. And we're going to take over the world at the same time. 5G will not assimilate. And Diamond, man, this is great. Thanks for coming on the program. You can see also that it's shining in the dark.
It's glowing. The lights are off. It's totally black in here. This is the glow rim illuminating the webcam. So half of this cap is glowing. I think it's iridium. It's radioactive actually on the rim here.
I tested it with the Geiger counter and the radiation levels.
Take the cap off. I'm gone.
Where'd you go, man? There you are. Man, we're crazy, folks. It's Colorado. It's Rocky Mountain High out here. The altitude is so high that there's not as much oxygen, so it makes people act a little bit different out here. And
I think the cosmic rays are hitting us early, and we're going to be evolving before them. So if you want to evolve earlier, move up like above 7,000 feet and you'll be all right.
Yes. And hey, real quick before we close out, we've got almost 850 people here. Remember how that discussion we had yesterday or the day before, I think it was yesterday, about the drone that we want to build that will make it to the moon. Remember that?
Yeah. Well, we're talking.
We've got Lee and we've got Lee Wilbarger, the Q. We've got Greg Allison, a rocket scientist that builds wormhole generators and offers them to the public. He actually has records for building rockets out of his backyard. So combined with your channel and the knowledgeable people that watch the Oppenheimer Ranch Project, that watch the Electric Blue Yacht, the Electric Blue Solar Yacht Project, Lee Wilbarger, as well as Lee Project. I mean, I get schooled every single day. What do we need to do to put a drone on the moon so we can see what's really on the dark side? That's what I'm talking about.
Well, I believe that we can raise, Rex, enough money from our community to send the first ever publicly owned satellite into space, and then actually orbit the moon with under $1 million. And we would actually be able to take our own photographs in high resolution for maybe years, depending on the technology that we put up there, if it's solar or lithium ion, for under $1 million. And we just get some really good, I have people that are in technology that would be able to design this stuff for free, simply to put their name on it. And for under $1 million just for the supplies, we could literally have a live cam, unadulterated, taking pictures, rotating around the moon that would scare the living daylights out of the powers that be. And I don't even know if they would allow it to happen. It would be so interesting to even launch it, to see what goes on and to see how it transpires. This is going to, at less than $1 million, we can launch a satellite out into space that then tracks itself towards the moon and goes into orbit on the moon. A small device, not a big device, but it would have a high resolution camera that would be solar powered, completely shielded. And it would be, what it would do is it would draw things out of the woods that we're looking for, I think.
Yes, I agree. And also what we could do for minimal, I'll put my own money into this, is I want to get a weather balloon that we can launch as far out as possible. We'll get all the permits and stuff we need for it. And then let's put together just a cheap rocket. I mean, I even remember when I was a kid, my dad used to get these, model rockets that 35 years ago had cameras built into them that you could launch several miles up. So I think it would be neat to, maybe we could get something like that and retrofit it or something similar with the newer technologies, and then use thermal imaging. We could have a few GoPros or some GoPro type cameras attached to it. I want to get the radiation detectors attached to it so people can look at the Geiger counters and see what the radiation levels are as it's going up. Just anything that we can think of. We could probably do that for a few grand, and we could get some really exciting footage. So maybe that will be the next project here at the Leak Project. And if there's anybody out there that's listening to this right now, we put this into the universe. So this is out there now, Diamond, and we're going to see where it goes, because mind over matter. You think it will come. Thank you, Diamond. This is great, man. I really appreciate you coming on the program. Folks, make sure to join us next time. Check out Diamond's YouTube channel, Oppenheimer Ranch Project. Check out Lee Wilbarger's YouTube channel as well. Make sure to subscribe to mine if you haven't already, and hit that bell so you'll get access to the live shows. If you want one of the caps that Diamond is wearing, go to leakproject.com/shop. And there is the last shipment coming in from the United Kingdom. There's only 25 of the MK2s left, then they're gone forever. The Mark II. Be excellent to each other and be the change you want to see.
Hacking the Matrix. Leakproject.com.